So what we're going to do now is take these equations and apply them in very simple cases. The simplest case we can describe is homogeneous autoignition. So what is this thing? So it's what's happening every time you mix two things. You take a box, and in this box you put fuel and air at a temperature T1, let's call it Ti. So we know the temperature at T equal to 0 is Ti, and we know the mass fractions at T equals 0. They are Yk I. And that means that the number of mole per cubic meters is also known at T equals 0. It's Nk I. So typically this is a box where you have mixed air and fuel. And the question which is interesting is, will it ignite or not? And if it ignites, how much time does it take to ignite? That's really one of the simplest examples you can think of. It's an important example in practice, of course. You want to know if these things are going to explode on you or if they are going to remain quiet. And you will see that in Toulouse we are experts at not understanding this problem. So to solve this problem, there's one thing you can do. First thing, you can say I can freeze the composition. So I will say that the Yk will remain equal at all time to the Yk at the initial time. Why do I do that? I'm just interested in the beginning of the ignition. So at the beginning of the ignition, the temperature will change, but the species will not change much. So I can say, let's keep them constant. Let's just look at the way temperature is changing. If you look now at this equation in 1D, not in 0D actually, in this problem there is no spatial dimension, you see that all the terms go away except one term, which is the heat release. So the equation for temperature is really rho Cp dt over dt equal omega dot T. And the heat release there, if we suppose, for example, there's only one reaction going on, I'm going to assume it's a single-step reaction. If there is one single reaction, the shape of this omega dot T is going to be something like A multiplied by the product of the Nk to the power nu prime k on all species, multiplied by exponential minus Ta over T. And if you look at this equation and you say that the Nks are frozen, because they are directly function of the Yk. Nk, let me write it down for you, is rho Yk over Wk. So if this thing is constant and this thing is constant, this equation is just an equation telling you T prime, the derivative of temperature, changes like exponential minus T over T. That's a problem you can solve by hand. Okay. The first thing is, how does exponential minus Ta over T look like? Ta is a constant. T is the temperature we are trying to compute. When T is small, T over T is large, the exponential minus 10 or 13 is 0. So basically, we are here. And when T gets sufficiently large, at some point, this exponential picks up, and the shape of this curve is something like this. So at high temperature, you get reaction. At low temperature, you get no reaction. That's typical of combustion. When everything is cold, it remains cold. And when you get too close to this limit, then you get into problems. So what does that mean? That means that if you increase the temperature a little bit, then the heat release will also increase a little bit. And then it looks like an explosive behavior. If you just look at this equation, you will see that it tends always to ignite. How much time does it take to ignite? Well, you can say that dt here, which is equal to A divided by rho Cp multiplied by pi Nk to the power nu prime k exponential minus Ta over T. you can say that you can have an evaluation of an ignition time just by saying that this term is equal to a temperature divided by a typical ignition time. Just by saying that 1 over this thing typically is an ignition time. And you get an evaluation for the ignition time. That's typically the time it will take you before this thing starts burning. Of course, in the real world, the species will be changing, the problem will be more complicated, but still, this gives us a very good evaluation of the ignition time. And so the ignition time you find, if you equate these two equations, is tau ignition equal Cp Ti divided by A to the power of the nk nu prime k exponential Ta over T. Very simple result. If I have a gas at temperature Ti with a concentration Nk, this is typically the time it will take to ignite. How does this time change? Well, obviously, if you plot this quantity here, the ignition time is like this. If you have a low temperature, the ignition time is very large. It can take years to ignite. And if the time goes down, if the temperature goes up, the time will go down. So it means that if you have in a box a mixture of methane and air at 300 K, you have no problem. You can leave it there. It will never explode. If you put it at 400 K, you're fine. 500 K, you're fine. 600 K, you should be careful. If you go to 800 K, your time is counted in minutes. If you go to 9,000 K, your time is counted in milliseconds. After 900 K, you're dead. So it really means that this curve here, which gives you the ignition time as a function of the temperature, is really critical for combustion. You cannot play with a premixed reactants. If you get too hot, they will just explode in front of you. Now, if you look at this expression, what you can do is compute, for example, the log of the tau ignition. You see, it depends on Ta over T. So what people do quite often, they plot the logarithm of the ignition time, and that gives us directly an estimation of the activation temperature. So let me give you an example of that, if I can find it. It's here. This is taken from a PhD I found on the web, but you can find many of them everywhere. So what people plot here, it's 1 over T. Actually, they've plotted 10 to the power 4 divided by T. So here you get 950 K, and here you get 1,100 K. And here they have plotted the ignition time. So you see that when the temperature increases, so you go that way, the ignition times decreases by 0.1 millisecond to 1 microsecond. And then, of course, things get dangerous. And you can see also it's almost a straight slope, straight curve. So you can guess from that the activation energy which is plotted here. Now, there is one thing about these curves which is a little bit strange still, is that if you have an infinite amount of time in front of you, everything will ignite ultimately. Okay? So it would seem that if you take a box and you put a mixture there, if you wait long enough, it will always ignite. Why is it so? Well, it's because the problem I have taken here is a little bit too simplified. So I want to take a second canonical problem here, which is the homogeneous autoignition with heat losses, which probably explains a little bit better what's going on. So it's the same problem now, but with losses. So it's autoignition plus heat losses. So now we take a box here where we have premixed gases, but we assume, and it's always the case in the real world, that this thing cannot get warm without caring about the surroundings. In the surroundings here, we have a temperature T infinity and a coefficient of convection, typically H, which is going to add a heat loss to this system. So the energy equation now for this system is the following. If you have a volume V and a surface S for this system, the changes of temperature of this volume V are given by this. This is the temperature change. Now, the source term is going to be omega dot T multiplied by the volume. That's the elevation of temperature due to the heat release. But then there will be heat losses. And the losses will be due to H, T minus T infinity, multiplied by the surface of this thing, the way it's cooled. If you look at this equation, it's like the one we had before, except we have a new term here. And you can plot it this, you can write it that way. dt over dt equal 1 over rho Cp omega dot T, same thing as before, minus H S over V, 1 over rho Cp T minus T naught, T infinity. Okay, now you see the problem gets a bit more interesting. If I plot here the temperature, you see that the heat loss is just a straight line there. Okay, it's linear in T. So the heat loss term is something like this as a function of T. Now the heat release term is very nonlinear, as we said, and it looks like this one. The heat release is 0 when temperature is low, and when temperature goes up, the heat release does that. So this is the 1 over rho Cp omega dot T, and this is H S over V 1 over rho Cp T minus T infinity. And so you see now you have really what you would call a bifurcating problem. If you are here, if the temperature is here, for example, the losses are much larger than the gain. Okay? So this term is less than this one. So if at some point you go from here to there, you will always come back. So it's what we will call a stable point. The heat losses here, let's write it down, the heat losses here, they are larger than the heat release. And here, you have a temperature which we call the temperature of crossover, where things change. If by mistake or by chance or by anything, you go on this side, when you are here, the heat losses are much less than the heat release. So here, things will burn. So basically, that it means that as long as you stay on this side, you have a stable position, you come back to that point. That means you will never ignite. That's the problem you have in your box. If you have a box in this room, it gets a little bit heated by heat release, but the heat losses are larger. So you always come back here. It's a stable point. But if you go over the temperature of crossover here, then right away, you go to combustion. So you see that the temperature of crossover separates two domains. One when you will never have ignition, never ever, not in an infinite time, and one in which you will have ignition very rapidly. And the problem with the crossover temperature is that it changes as a function of many things, but for example, it changes when S over V is changing. S is the section, the surface of your pocket, and V is the volume of it. If this number is changing, for example, it comes here, you see the temperature of crossover goes this way. Okay? So typically, if S over V increases, the temperature of crossover goes down. Well, when does S over V increase? Well, if it was a sphere, S over V would be 4 pi S R squared divided by 4 squared, so it's proportional to 1 over R. Okay? So it means that if you start having a problem in which S over V changes, then you can have a crossover temperature which moves away from what you had before. So typically, I just said something wrong here. S over V goes down here. Yeah. S over V is the slope of this thing. So the way it works is the following. Suppose R goes up, S over V will go down, the temperature of crossover will go down. So this leads to a very simple story. You can have, instead of gaseous reactants, you can do the same thing with solid. you can have a big pile, a big heap of a mixture of products, for example, like in Toulouse. Remember AZDF, for example, in Toulouse. If this pile is small, then S over V is very large, and the temperature of crossover is large. So you can dump everything you want there, it won't explode. After years and years, when the pile gets larger, you get more and more stuff there, then this ratio, S over V, is going down. The temperature of crossover is going down also. So this is what we have heard. Actually, you know, the accident in Toulouse was not the only one. It's been the same thing in other countries before, that people are always surprised. They get a big pile of stuff which never explodes. They add things on it. So S over V goes down, temperature crossover goes down, and one day you just add one more thing, and it's a hot day, and you jump on the other side, and then you wipe out a village or a town or whatever. So it's really an illustration of the importance of the crossover domain, and that also a very simple example to show you that very simple ideas like don't make big piles of stuff. If you need to store them, put them separately, not together. Because if you put them together, you are lowering this temperature, and it can lead, of course, to accidents. So you see very simple canonical problems for the moment, but right away, you see how important these things can be in your life, especially in Toulouse. We have paid for that. Now, I have finished with the simpler cases. I need to go now to the more interesting ones. And the more interesting ones is the laminar premix flame. So now we're going to jump from a problem which was zero-dimensional to a problem which is one-dimensional.